Hi, I'm Dr. George Yancey. Let's share some paradigms. And the paradigm I'll share today concerns identity politics and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. As I do this video right now, there's been a ceasefire in Gaza between Palestine and Israel. My hope is when this video comes out, that ceasefire is still in place. You know, these things, sometimes they can break down and we could be back where we were, which I hope none of us want to see happen. But now I must ask some questions. Questions as to why is this conflict so central to not just the United States or Israel or Palestine, but to the world? You know, Nigeria, up to this point this year, 7,000 Christians have died from a persecution. Why have we not talked about that at least half as much as the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? I want to use the framework of identity politics to look at that question, because I think that is the major reason why this conflict has gained so much attention around the world. It's not just in the United States, around the world. This conflict has so much attention. And I think it's part of an identity politics that's global. So let's look at this. Identity politics, and you may have known this if you've seen some of my other videos on identity politics. And if you've not, I invite you to check out that playlist. I really try to go into what identity politics is, the problems that come from it. So I'll just invite you to do that. But identity politics has this sort of oppressor-oppress mentality. This is a mentality that there's a group of people who are oppressed and there's the oppressors. And the purpose of identity politics is to try to create a political framework to serve those who are oppressed. Identity politics is a politics about the oppressed. Therefore, you have to identify the oppressor in order to deal with them. That is one of the key tenets of identity politics. It's not the only one, but it's a very key one. In fact, we really couldn't have identity politics the way we do it today without this oppressor-oppress framework. All right. In that framework, then, those who engage in a more progressive identity politics, there's a conservative form of this, which I do deal with in some of my videos as well. And I'm just as critical of that as I am about the progressive one. But the progressive one is what we're dealing with right now. In that framework, Israel are seen as the oppressors, Palestinians are seen as the oppressed. And from that, the issues, the problems of identity politics begins to flow. Okay, before I go on and really enunciate some of these issues, I just want to ask for you to consider, is this the sort of conversation you'd like to have? Are these the sort of topics you want to address? If so, check out some of my other videos. Please like this one if you enjoy this topic and what I'm doing. Or consider subscribing. Or you can do all of it. You can subscribe, you can like this one. If you disagree, please comment as well. Just trying to get this environment out here, environment in this sort of channel where it's a Christian channel, but it's a Christian that doesn't go to the left or right, not comfortable with either one, and gives us hopefully some new insight. So you don't have to be a Christian to subscribe, but I'm telling you what this channel is about. Anyways, let's get back to it. Okay, so identity politics, oppressor-oppressor, oppressor and the oppressed. Because of this, the way people engage identity politics do it is that we must defeat the oppressor no matter what. And there's a tendency in identity politics to then dehumanize the oppressor, to see them as this great evil that has to be defeated. They're not actual people. They're an evil that must be defeated. This is how Israel is seen by those who have adopted an identity politics. The Palestinians are seen as the oppressed. They're the victims. And I'm not going to get into all the details of the long Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Plenty of people do a better job of that than I do. It's not my area of expertise. I'm just telling you that that's how they are seen. As long as they're seen that way, this makes this conflict, rather than the one in Nigeria, this conflict one that must be addressed, and must be addressed in a way to serve the Palestinians. Now, of course, there are those who support Israel, and they're fighting for Israel, and Israel's fighting for itself. But that, I think, sort of centralizes this conflict, makes it such an important conflict globally. Pinning a label people as either the oppressor or the oppressed is essentially dehumanizing. And the conflict becomes not about what people are doing to each other, but how we defeat this problem, this great evil. Now, I point this out because I think identity politics gives us insight to a lot of the ways we react. Why we automatically reject certain groups, certain people, and automatically support others. There is definitely a world in which the Israelis are the ones who are oppressed. In fact, throughout most of our world history, it would be hard to see how they were not one of the most oppressed groups. There were. But they're not in the definition of progressive identity politics. To some degree, who is defined as oppressed and who is defined as oppressor is culturally and socially constructed to the needs, to the desires, to the taste of certain groups. And for whatever reason, and once again, I'm not an expert on Palestinian-Israeli conflict. I'm sure people can bring up some of the events and what have you. And some of the people defending Israel can bring up other events. So I'm not an expert in this. But for whatever reason, the Israelis have been defined as the oppressor. And that then determines the attitudes that those engaged this progressive form of identity politics will have. And it can help ginning up this conflict again and again. Once again, I hope, and prayers to this, that the ceasefire is held. Unfortunately, I will not be totally shocked if by the time this video comes out it's not held. But my prayers, my hopes, is definitely in the other direction. As well, I think yours is as well. Well, thanks. I hope that this has been insightful, something to think about. And please come back. We can shatter some more paradigms.